Carol Ann and Donna are not in that room.
Well, some goddamn thing is.
Oh, yes. Anger. Rage.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I'm Ashley Sledge, and let's defend horror. So today I have a special guest. Who are we kidding? We all know who this is. Ken, dear, how are you?
What's up, everybody? Like I said before, I know me and Ashley weren't going to do this, but we both found movies that we really wanted to defend. So we just decided, what the hell? It's our channel. Let's do what we want. And let's have a little fun with each other. But it's very nice to see you, babe. I've missed you all day.
I have missed you as well. So let's get into it. What movie are we defending today?
Today we are defending, in my opinion, the criminally underrated Poltergeist 3.
Yes, and you know how I feel about it as well. So I was super excited to defend this movie. So I'm just going to give some Rotten Tomato scores. The tomato meter is 16%, kind of low, and then audience score is only 22%. So some of the major criticisms that we read on were a weak plot, no effective scares, isn't scary, it's boring, the ending falls flat, but I mean, we'll talk about it, but there's reasons. Lacking most of the OG cast, doesn't fit in with the other three movies, and it's unneeded, only made for the box office. Okay. What do you think?
I think a lot of that is short-sighted. I actually think this jump scare right here is one of the best in the whole Poltergeist franchise.
Wasn't her fault.
Yes, it is! So that's one jump scare that always got me, even as a kid, like that, yes, it is, it's not her fault. And then he jumps out at the mirror. That's one that always got me as a kid. And I think that while Reverend Kane, we don't get as much of him in this film, I still think that he's absolutely terrifying in the moments that we get of Reverend Kane throughout Poltergeist 3. So the no scary moments thing, I don't understand that at all. Like, I actually think...
I agree. I don't understand that either. And like the use of mirrors and stuff, like,
so good.
That's really scary. Like to look into a mirror and see something that's not actually happening, like that kind of stuff freaks me out. So
yeah, me too.
Can you tell me why this means so much to you?
The amount of times I watched it as a kid, me and Kendra, my little sister, we used to watch this movie together all the time. And my sister looks like Heather O'Rourke. When we were kids, like, she had the long, really almost bleach blonde hair. She had a pair of the red footy pajamas. So when I'm watching this movie, I'm seeing my little sister. And so I think that really, helped with my connection into the movie. And even as a kid, the score creeped me out. Like, I love the score to this film. I think the score is amazing, very creepy. And it's just one of those nostalgia things that I watch this and I'm transported back to being, a 7-year-old in my room with my 4-year-old sister. And, we're watching this movie and, it's movies like this, The Rat from Creepshow 2, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like these movies that me and my kid sister used to watch all the time. We were very, 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 very close when we were kids. And I watch these movies and I'm transported back to just when times were easier. And it was just me and my little sister just hanging out together, watching movies. And I think that's a big reason this movie will always be super special to me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I think that this movie is the one that I also watched most as a kid. So knowing that you love it just as much as I did, because a lot of people don't like this movie, was really awesome when we first met. So that's another thing that we connected on.
Right.
So give me some favorite moments. What are favorite moments that you love from this movie?
I got a couple, because I want to talk about some from like as a kid and as an adult. And one as an adult is when you have the crane shot outside the room and it's going down the apartment complex into each room as he's walking by. The uncle, Bruce, as he's walking, like the crane's following him from outside the window. I think that shot is really, really great. It looks really, really good in the movie when you're watching it as an adult. Another thing as an adult that I really like is Bruce and Carol Ann's relationship. Usually when you have a stepdad, a stepmom, a step uncle, a step grandparent, the step one is usually the one that's really anti the kid being there, or, you know what I mean? They're the evil one, so to speak. And this movie's completely different. Like, Uncle Bruce is the one trying to hold this family together, and that's not his blood. So this movie really takes that stereotypical step uncle, step aunt thing and flips it on its head. And Bruce is so good to Carol Ann.
Mhm.
and you can see that he genuinely loves her so much. Like he is just head over heels, would do anything for this young lady, just like she was his blood. So
Right.
as an adult, that's another moment that's super impressive to me in the writing process. A
Mhm.
couple as a kid that really, really got me was when Bruce is talking to Pat and he turns around and walks away, but he's still there in the mirror. And then
Yes.
Pat starts doing the looking back, looking forward, looking back, and he's just gone. Like those
Yeah.
moments, like you said, mirrors. We all have mirrors. That kind of stuff really scared me as a kid. And then another one from a kid that really got me is when you have Carol Ann running through the parking garage and she stands on the mud puddle and then she
Mhm.
gets sucked down into the mud puddle by the hands coming up and getting her. Um, Another moment that truly, truly terrified me as a kid. It's just you're watching this as a child, and we all used to jump in mud puddles. Like that's
Right.
you see a mud puddle, you play in a mud puddle, and seeing those hands come up and grab her feet and pull her down. Such a scary, scary moment out in that parking garage. And one last thing I want to say is something I thought this movie also did very well. They suppressed Carol Ann's memories, and she wasn't really haunted anymore. And then Dr. Seaton made her talk about Reverend Kane. And the
Mhm.
more she talked about him, much like Freddy Krueger, the more powerful he became, and he was able to find her again. So the idea that therapy is what brought back her monsters. Usually when you think about therapy, you go to talk about your monsters and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Therapy brought this monster back into her life. And again, I think that's brilliant. I think there's the little things in this movie, like the relationship between the step uncle and the step, niece. The
Yeah.
reason that he got brought back was because of what's supposed to be a helpful therapy session. I think these are brilliant ideas. I really, really enjoy them, especially as an adult looking back.
Mhm. Even as a kid, I hated that psychologist. Like he was such a
Dr.
jerk.
Seaton, fuck
Yes.
that guy.
So, so now we all love kills. So what's your favorite kill?
Oh, it's a tie, really. One is Dr. Seaton. When you
Yeah.
see him fall down the elevator
Like you
shaft,
want him to die.
you do because he's such a dick. And then later
Yeah.
on, when the elevator comes up and he's still all like rotted, like I love that moment. And then Tangina's death. It makes me sad because I love the character of Tangina. But
Yes.
when the hand comes out and grabs her, Tangina, and then she just dies, and right away goes rotten. And the daughter, her hands start coming out of her face, and she's screaming, and like
Mhm.
that whole moment is another one that really scared me as a kid. Like she's, when you watch her hand bust out of her face, like that was such a
Yeah.
disgusting, scary moment. Um, Hated to see Tangina go, but she went out like a boss. So I really, really did like that kill too.
Yeah. I know. I love Tangina and I hated to see her go, but I mean, she did it for the right reasons. She
Hmm.
she loved Pearl Land too.
Right.
Can you think of any one-liners or favorite quotes from this movie?
I have three.
Okay.
Because, because these are all things I said as a kid. Like, here's one right here.
We're back.
Now, in the movies, in the first one, they're here. In the second one, they're back. And in this one, you have Carol Ann to herself, we're back. And they start pulling her up the mirror. Holy shit. I love that moment. Um, Another one is this one.
That's not Carol
When Tangina gets in between her and pushes her away, that's not Carol Ann. And then it looks up, damn you. And then it gets sucked back in. Like, oh, and
Yes.
then right after that, when Pat's like, how did you know that wasn't Carol Ann? And Tangina's like, frankly, dear, I'm surprised that you didn't.
I know. I love that too, just because it was just like a backhanded, like,
Yeah.
well, how did you not know when I did? Like, you should know her. Yeah.
Yep. And then one more I want to talk about is this one.
Don't let that pompous ass shrink tell you she's Carrie or Houdini or some damn thing like that.
I never caught this as a kid, but for those of you that know, Pat was in the movie Carrie. So when you have, Bruce drop this line about her being Carrie, I just think that's so funny. Like that little
Yeah.
bit of meta-ness there, I think is brilliant. Like I love when a movie can be uh, unironically meta in that type of way where they don't got to shove it in your face, but if
Yeah.
you know, you know.
Right.
So when you have Bruce delivering the Carrie line, you and I were Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, she was in it.
Well, again, we caught on to it as adults when we were watching this franchise together. Like that's something that we're both like just kind of looked at each other and like, okay, like that kind of went over our head as kids. But
Right.
yeah, the more you dissect, the more you know.
Right.
Okay, so we all know that, there isn't a perfect movie, not even Pee-wee's Big Adventure, in my opinion. So can you tell me some of your biggest criticisms with this film?
Yeah. You do get some very, very corny dialogue like this.
I wish Dusty would, pant that way from me, Jeff's constantly in heat. Practically have to muzzle him every night. It's a real drag. Maybe he could, give Dusty ideas?
That's a little little iffy.
Yeah.
A lot of the secondary actors aren't the greatest. You don't get a lot of amazing acting out of your secondary actors in this movie. They're kind of goofy as shit at times, and sometimes overly goofy with the things they're
Yeah.
doing and the things they're saying.
Especially
Obviously
like
the ending. Especially what?
the teenagers, just some of the over the top, like their
Ridiculous.
slang back then. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, it doesn't hold up today because when you have, again, I hate to sound like I'm such an old man, but back then those kids were hip. They were
Right.
the cool kids. And the way that they would talk then, it doesn't age well. Just like if
No.
you watch kids from the 90s, like, that's all that in a bag of chips. You know what I mean? Like that shit wouldn't age well
Hey, I
now.
still say that.
So, that's, and then we talked about it a little bit ago, how we get a little deeper into it, but the ending, Heather O'Rourke had passed away during filming, the one that played Carol Ann, and nobody wanted to finish the film. The
No.
actor, director, producer, like nobody
Rightfully
wanted
so.
to.
A
Yes,
10-year-old lost her life.
right. So when you have people that don't want to finish the film, you do have a studio that's going, I don't give a fuck what you want. We already spent all this money. You're gonna finish the movie. So they got another body double. They made the body double get into Pat's arms, and you can clearly see that they are shielding her face, so you can't see that it's not Heather. And Ashley and I have talked about this before, but if you have a Shudder subscription, if you don't, you need to get one.
Mhm.
If you do, there's a thing on there called Curse Films, a series, and they go really in depth about Poltergeist 3. And the director even says on there, like, if I could go back, I would have done something different to honor
Yeah.
Heather. Because all we have for her is her name on a title card at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
That's all we did. And we were so heartbroken at the time that we didn't even think about what we could do to make this worth it for her. We were just so broken that
They just wanted to get it done.
and they were upset. They're heartbroken. Heather O'Rourke was a shining star, and it talks about in the documentary too. Like her first day on set, she walks up to the director and is like, "I'm going to be watching you because I'm going to be a director someday, and I want to learn everything you do." And when you have a 10 to 12-year-old girl talking to you like that, that's special.
Yeah.
Like that's so special. And it was medical misdiagnosis of Crohn's disease that took her life. She had an inflammation in her bowel, and it got filled with poison. It busted and took her life. And
and one of the
terrible.
reasons why her cheeks were so big because she was on so much medication and steroids, and it just made her swell up, and it's just so sad to watch.
Yeah,
honestly,
because I feel like she could have been a huge star.
Absolutely.
Well, something else that you and I have talked about in the Poltergeist remake, they purposely casted the opposite of Heather. They casted a young girl with dark hair, and they named her Maddie instead of Carol Ann because there's only one Carol Ann. So out of respect for Heather, the remake didn't try to redo Carol Ann, and that to me is another thing that's super special.
Yeah, that was in good taste for sure.
Yes, there's only going to be one Carol Ann, and it's Heather. She's the only one we're ever going to have. So, and obviously, but as you're watching it, when you watch that ending part, you get like, oh man, what a shit ending. It's a dog shit ending. But for, and again, I feel for the directors. I feel for them. They didn't want to do it. We're more concerned about what just happened to this beautiful young lady than what the fuck happens in a movie. We don't care about this movie.
Right.
So yeah, that's another thing is the ending. And then it's funny now because back in '88, I think is when this movie was released, they didn't have any inclination about what 4K is. So like they didn't know that someday they would be brightening up the screens. And when Heather gets taken down, Carol Ann on the in the mud puddle, you
Yeah.
can see the lift. So
Yeah.
like you could clearly see the lift that she's standing on, pulling her down. And again, like I would rather that than a CGI effect.
Right.
Even with that lift, I think that ages so much better than if they would have done it CGI. So to be able to see how this was done practically with her standing on a lift and the lift lowering to bring her down into the puddle, I guess you could call that a criticism because you're kind of breaking the fourth wall and seeing how it worked, but it's still awesome. Like I love seeing this scene. Like we watched it on a review of the movie, and we were just like, that's so fucking rad. Like
Yeah.
to show like the practical effects in the movie, I thought that was really cool. So
Yeah.
I won't bitch about it, but I'll call it a negative because I know that some people would say, "Oh, well, they should have hit it better." Dude, they didn't even know what the fuck. That was back with VHS. Watch this movie on
Yes.
VHS, and I guarantee you're not going to be able to notice that.
They had no idea what was to come. No idea.
Right.
So I already know the answer to this question, but for everybody else, is this your favorite in the franchise?
It is.
Yes.
Mine actually goes backwards, and I think the first Poltergeist is great. But mine goes 3, 2, 1 remake.
Which we agree
And
completely on. We never agree on things like this, and that is it, we agree completely on.
yeah, and I honestly I think 2 is probably the scariest in my opinion.
Mhm.
1 is probably the most original, and I can see why it's the most loved out of all of them. But with 3, like you get, Carol Ann has her biggest role of any of the movies in this movie, and she really
Mhm.
shows up a lot of the adult actors in this movie. Her acting skills from 1 to 3
Oh,
just grows exponentially.
absolutely.
Um, and like I think this one has better scares than the first one does. And
Mhm.
I'm not taking away from the first Poltergeist movie. That movie's a fucking classic and it's so good. But
Yeah.
there's just something about this movie I think is so special and so terrifying.
Yeah. I agree with that. So give me a ranking, 1 out of 10. Where would you rate Poltergeist 3?
I'm gonna say right around a 7. I think that's a fair ranking for me.
Yeah.
Like I said, there are some sluggish parts in the movie. There is some really bad dialogue and some really shoddy acting.
Mhm.
And like I said, that ending, I'm not going to put the ending as a fault on them because I
Yeah.
get it, but it's still, I got to be critical of this. So I feel like 7 is a good spot for me to put this one.
That's pretty good. I think I would probably an 8. I have to one up you a little bit, but again, it was my favorite. It was the one that I watched most as a kid, so it's a lot of nostalgia for me. And I think it's scary. The mirrors are scary, so I'm gonna give it an 8
Mhm.
out of 10. All
Perfect.
right, Ken, your final defense. You have 30 seconds to tell someone why they should rewatch this or watch it for the first time. What are you going to tell them?
This is something different. Even in its own franchise, this is something different. It grows just like a sequel is supposed to do. It gets bigger. The effects they have with mirrors throughout this movie are fantastic. There's a lot of effects that are done with mirrors that are absolutely great. You get a lot of great performances from your lead cast. Your lead cast is phenomenal and on point. The most, in my opinion, emotional of the movies. Um, there's a lot of moments, like even when Carol Ann is talking to Aunt Pat, and she's like, "Just give me the necklace, and you can have your family. You don't care about me anyway." Like, there's a lot of moments in this movie that make you feel things, and
Mm-hmm.
I love when you can take a family drama and make it a horror movie. And all the Poltergeist did a great job of doing that, but this one takes that scope and just makes it so much bigger. And Reverend Kane, I think he's just an amazing villain. I think he is a fantastic villain and I think he
Mm-hmm.
does a great job in this movie. Even for the little bit we see him, I think he's phenomenal. So that would be my thing. If you want something different, if you're privy to things that have mirrors, great practical effects all throughout the movie. We
Yeah.
talked about it a little bit ago. I don't think there's any CGI that's coming to my mind at all. I think this is 100% practical from what I can remember. So what's not to love about that? Even when the water's filling up in the cooler, and the
Yeah.
pigs are coming to life, and Tangina comes out and gives Bruce the necklace. Like that's all practical.
Yeah.
Everything in that is practically done, and it looks so damn good. So that would be my final defense. That may have been longer than 30 seconds, but it's my show.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, hey. No, I'm just
I was
kidding.
waiting for this. This is my show.
This is my show today. No, it's our show.
Yes, it is,
So,
ma'am.
is there anything else that you would like to add before we let everyone go?
Well, I just want to say, guys, thank you for watching. And if you have seen Poltergeist 3, let us know where you rank it in the franchise. And if not, please give it a watch and let us know. And if you're not a fan, if you have the chance, please go back and rewatch it and let us know what you think of it, because it means the world to Ashley and I. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And follow Sledgehammer Horror on social media. All our links are in the description as well.
Keep talking horror, stay who you are, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.